Oh my god, if you can bring a copy of your resume to an interview, do so.
Yeah,
Bring multiple copies.
that's something that we forgot, because we've been doing interviews by video for the past couple of years. Definitely, if you are going in person, bringing a copy of your resume is a great idea.
Because you don't know, like, if you're doing, especially if you're doing like a long day of interviews, like, not everyone's gonna have a copy of it, or they might pull in Bob from like, oh yeah, hey Bob in the hallway, like come talk to Ryan real quick. Like, just bring copies of your resume, it doesn't hurt. Especially if you're in person. Yeah, if you're in person. Very good, boss move.
Okay, Ryan, make sure you speak up so we can get your audio. All right.
Hello, welcome to this faux interview with Faux Company. This is Ash, she's the VFX lead. I'm the director. What's your name, sir?
My name is Ryan, and thank you for having me and taking the time out of your day.
Ryan, what made you interested in applying here?
Honestly, I kind of grew up playing y'all's games, and it's always been almost a dream of mine to have my name attached to a title in this franchise, because I know that there are people out there who play your games and they want to get to the industry because of your games, and I would love to be a part of that legacy.
Okay, so we're looking at your resume here, and usually we would look at these before going into an interview. So Ash, do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
Yeah, I would say, just get to know you first, just kind of break it down. So what do you do outside of game development?
Really enough, my hobby outside of game development is tabletop game development. I am in the process of making my own tabletop RPG that is similar in ways to games like Fallout, in the sense that it's like a post-apocalyptic survival. But I'm doing all the math, all the formulas, all the lords, all the...
Do you think that you found anything in this hobby that has helped improve your academic work?
Dealing with feedback.
How so?
Well, my first prototype for the game, my tabletop game, I brought it out to the world, and it was immediately sent back to me because they're like, game's boring.
Who did you send it to?
I sent it to the tabletop game club at my own college.
Okay, cool.
How did you respond to that feedback?
I was like, oh, okay, seemed fun to me. Why do you guys think it's boring? And they're like, oh, you have all this math, but we don't like math. We want we want it to be snappy, we want it to be understandable, we want it to be, in a manner of speaking, easy to pick up. Like, it was very much, the original draft was really like, okay, I have all these formulas that I use for this, but that was all in my head, and it was like, oh, okay, so if I lessen the intensity of there, but make it to where it's more approachable, and that's what I did for the second draft. I brought it back to them, they're like, okay, we ran a few games, it's better.
What sort of prototyping or testing did you do before you sent this out to get feedback?
I called a few of my friends and be like, hey, I have an idea for a game. If you got like 4 hours this Saturday, let's sit down and play. They said that they had fun, but since I was the one running the game, a lot of the stuff that the playtesters complained about, I had in my head. So there wasn't an issue when I was running the game, but when other people were running the game, issues came up, and that was their feedback, that they were having these issues.
So I think that's a really key thing to hit on, because like a lot of times when we're making a game, like we don't know what the player is thinking. So what have you changed in your design process now, knowing that that's an issue? What have you changed the way that you create your tabletop now?
I have definitely taken, I don't know if there's a name for the approach, but what I do is like, I come up with an idea, I write the idea out when it first comes to me, in its giant, complex thing. And then I take the feedback from my first draft, and like, okay, X, Y, and Z is what they complained about here. So X, Y, and Z applied to the new iteration. And my policy is simple is fun for this, because like at the end of the day, if they're just sitting around and be like, yeah, and I roll to attack, yeah, like that's not fun. They have to be like on the edge of their seat rolling to attack, and if they miss, it's a big thing. If they hit, it's an even bigger thing. At the end of the day, my objective is to make them have fun.
Did you work with anyone when you were building this?
Nope, all me.
How do you define fun?
A positive experience derived from the actions that you yourself are doing. I mean, like,
So like cutscenes aren't fun? In a video game, are they fun?
to me, it depends on the style of cutscene. Like in my opinion, a cutscene that is a first-person cutscene where the player kind of feels immersed in the events of the cutscene is more exciting than a cutscene where the camera pulls out and you see the character from a third-person perspective, almost alienating the player from the immersion. Another thing for me is immersion is fun. So if the player is immersed in a cutscene, the cutscene is more exciting, therefore more fun.
So too exciting, it's fun.
To a degree, yes.
Okay.
Because I understand there are players out there too that games like The Last of Us are fun to them, which that's in my book very slow, methodical, character driven. Some people find that fun. I find excitement fun.
So, jumping to my next question is, if we were to bring you on to our team, what would you say you'd be able to add to our group?
One thing I definitely think I could add to the group would be and this is going to sound super cliche, it is a semi-fresh perspective, and in the sense that I grew up as a consumer of these products, so my site isn't necessarily bogged down like, oh, this is what is expected of us. It's like, no, the players loved this, so this is where we should be going. And obviously that's what a lot of people are probably thinking. It's like, oh, this is what the consumers want. Let's give the consumers what they want. It's like, yes, the consumers want this, the players want this, give the players what they want. Another thing is also like, I'm a bit high energy when I'm super excited, and I understand coming to the office at 6 a.m. in the morning on a Monday, everyone's going to be a drag. And
Who's coming in at 6 a.m.?
Me.
That's a bit of a red flag for me for sitting here at 6 a.m.
sorry,
This you have to.
yeah.
Oh, gosh, don't go to that place. Please continue.
Yeah, but I understand. But when people are in the office in the morning and they're tired because it's the morning, they kind of don't want to be there. There's a person who comes like, "Hey guys, I'm happy to work. Let's get to work." That attitude is infectious and will create a higher morale amongst the workforce, which makes them want to work harder.
So, obviously we're interviewing a lot of people for this highly desirable job at the company. You said that you had a fresh perspective. What makes your perspective fresh?
I believe my perspective is fresh because I don't look at game journalism or a lot of like the discourse in game. My perspective is like, okay, this is what the developer wanted. This is what they brought to the world. This is what everyone else is seeing. What aren't they seeing? And I look to what people aren't seeing. Like this game in a different game in a different franchise came out, and all these people were pointing out that, oh, the game failed at X, Y, and Z, and everybody was looking at the failures. I look at it like, well, but they excelled in A, B, and C.
Right.
And I feel in the modern era of social media review bombing, everybody looks to the failure and never to what they actually did well. And I always look for like, okay, what did this game do well?
So let's say we were to hire you. And Ash and I are sitting down 6 months from now and we're like, man, Ryan, I'm glad we hired Ryan. Like, we're at lunch, whatever, you're not here. You're doing your lunch with your own friends. And we're like, gosh, Ryan's great. Ryan is great because, give me 2 reasons why Ryan is great 6 months in.
He's a dedicated worker because I always see him punching in early, punching out late, and going above and beyond for the tasks he's been assigned. And he is just a joy to be around. There is never a moment where I am around him where I feel like I've had enough of him today.
Okay. What would you do in a situation where you got some feedback, let's say from the art director, and you just do not agree with it. What would you do in that situation?
If the art director had time, I would ask him to further elaborate on what he didn't agree with, because if he's the director, end all be all, his word is borderline law. And if I don't agree, I'm like, okay, we don't agree on this. Why does he think the way he thinks? And if his reason makes total sense to me, like, oh wow, when I was doing that, I didn't even consider that or even see that, and now that he's pointing out to me, okay, his objection makes sense. But if it was like, no, I just staunchly disagree, I would sit down with the team worker, like, hey guys, our director doesn't like this thing that we're doing. How do you guys think we should reorient to something that is more in line with what the director wants?
So, the question that, hey, what does the director want and everything like that. I previously asked you, like, hey, like, if we were to talk about, like, the things that you're doing well, if we were to talk about the things that you needed to work on after 6 months, what do you think some of the things we would say about areas of improvement?
Areas of improvement, I would have to say would be, to a degree, teamwork, because I feel I'm a person who is like, the task has been given to the team, I can do it. I'm so gung-ho about working here that it's possible that I will go too far and start doing too many tasks and not leaving enough work for the team. So working in the team environment, using the team to the project's advantage would probably be an area that I need to work on, just like to not overshadow everyone else, because this is a team, this is our project together. No one person should overshine the other.
So knowing that that's an area, I need 2 concrete things that you would do to not overshadow or overtake your teammates. I want 2 specifics.
Weekly meetings, I would ask the teams like, hey, I understand it's Monday, could we all sit down for lunch and discuss how the project's going, or what areas of the project you feel like, hey, we're not getting enough work over here. Like, okay, I have been doing that task, I apologize, here's what I've done, feel free to ignore what I've done, here's your task, this is what you're supposed to be doing, I apologize. Another thing is in a way scheduling myself, breaking down my tasks by day and giving each task a proper bubble, and if there's a task that fits outside of my day, okay, that's a task that I cannot do. So it's someone else on the team needs to do it.
And what would you do in the situation of someone not completing the task that they haven't given or they are too slow?
Well, before I would jump to any conclusions, I would ask them why they didn't complete the task. Because if an emergency happened and they had to be called away to where they cannot do that, I'm not going to punish somebody for oh, my kid got a concussion at school.
Let's say it's a constant thing.
A constant thing?
Yeah.
I would definitely bring that up with the team, the supervisor, and be like, hey, so and so isn't doing their tasks in a reasonable manner. But if I was the one who was in charge of dealing with that, I would be like, hey, you're not keeping up to task. If this continues even further, we're gonna have to either lessen the amount of stuff you have to do, or we're gonna have to, if that still continues to be an issue after that, we're gonna have to let you go. Which I understand might not be my decision, but in a scenario where it is my decision, either shape up or get out.
I think we have time for one more question, but then we want to give you time to ask us some questions.
Of course.
So Ash, do you have a final question that you would like to ask? Or I have my favorite one that I can ask.
Go ahead.
Have you played the Borderlands series at all?
I have.
If you had to take Claptrap out for lunch, for business lunch, where would you take him?
I would take him to this poker restaurant that I go to on every weekend,
Yes.
where he and I can sit down, maybe grab a hand or two, I call my friend Ash over, see if he wants to play.
Before we give you a chance to ask us, I want you to take 30 seconds and give us the elevator pitch on why we should hire you. I want you to boast the heck out of yourself.
Frankly, I'm a joy to be around. Like, I will, on top of having a kick-ass work ethic, I will do everything in my power to make sure everyone in the team around me is enjoys working on the project, even on days when, like, it might just be like a grueling task, but hey, I'm working like a cubicle and a half over from this Ryan guy, and he brings cookies every Friday.
Yeah. Good. Hey, that was a little over 30 seconds, but very, very close. What questions do you have for us?
Kind of almost, and I don't understand we kind of did icebreaking earlier, almost an icebreaking question. What's y'all's opinion on video game movie adaptations?
That's a good question.
I like them.
Yeah. Hey, they make more money for the franchises, so it works in our favor.
Right. Yeah. And another kind of, and now more of a serious question. If you were to hire me, where would you guys see me in a year?
I think if we were to hire you, we would really want to see in a year where you fit in as a junior designer. We'd want to see how well you interact with a team, how well you are learning to build systems. Ash, what would you look for?
Essentially just how well you perform and interact with the team.
Another question I have is how is the I don't know the official term for this. Apologies. How is the team overlap? Like, how often do other teams work with each other on the same point?
A lot.
There's a
Just
lot of
a lot of crossover, yeah.
Okay.
Multidisciplinary.
So it wouldn't be uncommon for like a VFX artist and an environment artist to come into like a level design cubicle and be like, oh, if we put that building there, does da da da.
They work in pods, so we encourage it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all work together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know some other companies, they staunchly keep the teams separated so they can focus and
Yeah, we would prefer more collaborative work.
Okay.
So if you're all comfortable with collaborative.
oh, I'm fully, I actually encouraged it. And one of the projects I worked on in college, I almost explicitly expected everyone like, hey, I understand you're working as an environment artist or a level designer or a writer, but go hang out with another team, go talk with them, see what they're doing, see if like maybe they have an idea for something you can do that makes it better.
Yeah, cool.
Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you for
Thank you
your
so
time.
much. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
See.
Yeah.
Oh, very well.
Here's one thing, I know we haven't talked about this yet, but during the interviews, there will be a time at the end of the interview where you can ask questions, like we did here, where you can ask questions to the studio. Have those questions pre-prepared, because you will be asked, and if someone asks you and you go, I don't know, that's not really a good look. So just write down like 5 questions that you may have during the interview. It's okay to actually write stuff as well. Take notes during your interview, just so you can look back and say, oh, we talked about this. I want to reiterate this. So it's okay to bring a piece of paper and write stuff. If you're in-person interview, write stuff down as well. The interviewers might be writing stuff down. It's fine, but have some questions pre-prepared.
Can you guys do a critique of that interview?
Yeah.
Like what would you guys, when he leaves, you guys do an exit, or, you guys speak to each other, right? What would you guys say to each other?
I would say it was a fine interview. One thing though, it's more of a personality thing. You seem very overeager, and that's not so much a red flag for me, but someone, I know you're nervous, which is.
And you had no prep for this.
Yeah, you had
it's
no
a job
prep
that doesn't
whatsoever.
exist.
Yeah.
I also purposely kind of hammed it up for
Yeah.
the camera.
Yeah, no, it's totally fine. It's one of the things is being nervous is acceptable. We understand that's that's why people typically do icebreakers, and obviously interviews last like an hour sometimes.
My day.
Yeah, or even a whole day. Depending on what the role is. Being comfortable it's hard to be comfortable. So one thing I do recommend, and I've told you this, bring a bottle of water, drink something while you're interviewing. It's okay. I mean, if you're having a glass, use the water, drink to actually think about the answer to a question. If you find yourself talking a lot, which is right, you do kind of go on, which is fine, but also let the interviewer speak as well. Like, give them time to talk. Don't just keep going on and on and on and on and on, and on because then you may end up saying something you don't want to say. So bring a bottle of water, ask for water. If you don't have one, I'm sure will say yes. They're not gonna be like, no, we're not giving you anything. Drink water. It's fine.
I like a nice glass of wine during an interview. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Bottle of water, no. Okay, so I think you redeemed yourself at the end. But at the beginning, I had some red flags. And again, like, it takes guts to come up in front of like a group of people out of nowhere and talk to Ash and I. And you're just like, hey, we just throw ourselves in this. So I think big props to that. The critique that I have is the biggest piece of advice I can give you is I think you should look at like a general list of interview questions and kind of think about how you would answer them when given them. Because I asked you a couple of questions and the way that you answered them was by putting down other people or other institutions. So you were like, I don't like to read this thing.
Okay.
And I'm just like, Ash and I are like, well, it's really, like, for me personally, it's important that you are knowledgeable about the industry. Also, you don't know who you're interviewing with. We have people at our studio that used to, write for like IGN and something like that. And if you're gonna sit across the table from them, you're like, I don't read journalists. You didn't say it that way, but you were kind of like dismissive of another, sort of field.
Right.
So I'd be careful about that. You never want to. You kind of made a couple of like statements that were kind of like bold. Like I was like, whoa, okay, like that's not what I would say. So you want to be careful about like, is the thing that you're saying gonna put you on a bad foot? I thought that you handled like I didn't get like too mean, but there's one part where you're like fun, and I'm like, all right, designer, you want to talk about fun? Like define fun for me. I think you need to think about that a lot more because.
A lot of subjective.
Oh, again, Jesse Shallow, I'll bring up all the time. You can't define fun. But I think as a designer, if I were to interview a designer, because you're a designer, right? Yeah. That's your whole job is to find the fun. And then it's your job to figure out what is fun and then ask the rest of us to invest all our time making assets and everything for you.
Right.
So you need to figure out what's fun. But the way that you were talking about fun is like what you think is fun, not what you think other players would think is fun. So you might want to think about that. And then you were speaking about, oh gosh, there was a thing that, I wrote it down, but it's not really difficult because my handwriting was terrible. You wrote about like what you like and how you think, and if you're gonna do that, you really need to put like concrete examples of things like, I think this type of game is fun because of like very concrete things. Like you spoke very sort of like academically about things, but I never really got a sense of, and again, this is a faux interview.
Right.
Like there was a time where I was like, I need you to be specific. Like
Right.
what specifically would you do? You really want to also, like you got to give like, so things that I find fun are like, I find math fun, or I find this fun, or I find that fun. The way that you spoke about interacting with your coworkers, you really need to hone that in. Because if I were to interview, I'd be like, oh my god, this guy is like chaos incarnate. He's going to come in and and maybe some teams would really like that, but I think the red flag that I would have, and I'd probably call you in for another interview, is be like, I want to know how you work with the team. And the way that I sort of felt that you came across is like you're very like overbearing, which is fine if you're like a mid-tier, but you're a junior, so you want to take the nugget of what is there. So there's something there that's very interesting. Like you're passionate, you are opinionated, which is good, but you want to make sure you harness that. So I want you to think about that answer and not be talking like I'm going to come in and like take on too much. Oh, and don't talk about like you're going to be the last person in and the first person in and the last person out. Like, no, don't talk about that. But like kind of curate your answers a little bit better. You need to work on your PR a little bit. But again, like faux interview, we just threw you in.
Right.
But like I'm trying to think of like the nugget. Like you have some really great qualities. You just need to know how to present them. And again, like you're very outgoing, you're very emotive, you're very creative, and like the thing that you're like, hey, I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna like take over, is like worrisome for us. So like I would also think you need to think about like every interviewer should ask you like, they'll ask you like, what do you suck at?
Right.
You need to have a good answer for that, and you need to be truthful. And like for me, it was always like, I tend to be a little quiet in new environments. I used to be, now I don't shut up. And then I would explain why and how it's something that I'm working on. So if someone asks you like what are the things that you need to work on, know what your answer is and know very specifically how you would fix that, and tell them that before they ask. Because they might not ask, they might just be like, this guy's upset math.
And you did have a good answer about the feedback.
Yes.
So responding to feedback is good. At least you didn't say, oh, I just took it and I didn't talk to them because I like that to say. Like you actually applied the feedback and then went back to them and said, hey, is this better? So that was actually a good answer.
And I really liked your elevator pitch. Like you really, at the end there, I'd be like, okay, I would interview this guy again. So you spoke about yourself well, and because I've asked people to do an elevator pitch before, and they're like, and I'm like, if you don't have confidence in yourself, why should I? And again, it's like, not everyone is confident. Confidence, by the way, is a learned skill. People who are like, they're just naturally confident, or they naturally have riz, as the kids say these days, baloney. It is a learned skill, and I meant to look up the address before I came here. The YouTube channel. There's a YouTube channel that I watch that talks about like charisma. Charisma is a learned skill, and if you're an introvert, like I'm gonna go home later. I have to go to the office party tonight, but like tomorrow, I'm gonna go home and just sit in the dark and like not be perceived by people because I'm an introvert. Do I come across introverted? No, I come across as loud, opinionated. I think someone called me a firecracker earlier. That was the greatest compliment in my day. But like, I go home and I'm fucking exhausted and I'm tired because I am an introvert. But I had to learn how to get like this. This was not a natural skill. So you guys need to invest in it, and I know it's not easy and it's not fun, and you will make mistakes. That's fine. But yeah, all in all, I think it's a good interview.
Any quick group Q&A? Any questions about that interview?
Yes.
I wouldn't hear the whole time, but sometimes I have trouble trying to sell myself to interview.
Yeah.
Like trying to explain my qualities. I think I might know what they are, but I'm not good at telling them that I'm good
Write
at
them
it.
down.
Yeah.
Write them down before the interview.
Right.
Just write go, this is what I'm good at, these are my qualities. If you know what they are, write them down. Like I said earlier, a lot of interviews are done by Zoom or Teams or whatever. Put them up on your screen and just like put them in a notepad, just read them. No, they're not gonna know. If you go to an interview, have them in a notepad that you're just taking notes on. It's like, I'm good at this is my qualifications. If you feel as though you are good on the spot, then prepare. This is something that my uncle had told me this. He's like the type of guy that has to do a lot of like speeches, and he's a very talkative person. He said he recommended, he's like, if you are able to drink, he said like having a beer or a glass of wine like relaxes you. Okay, don't get drunk. Don't just get out there and be like, oh, I'm sloshed.
Ash is raising a generation of alcoholic.
But he was like, if you feel nervous, having just a small drink will help you calm your nerves, but obviously don't go in there smelling like you just came
Meditation also works as well if you want to go a different route.
But that's only if you're able to drink. If you're old enough, like having just something to just calm your nerves so you don't go in there and you're too nervous, just to kind of relax yourself a little bit.
The point of an interview.
But if the interview is at like 8 o'clock in the morning, don't do that.
The point of an interview is for a company to get to know you and for them to understand like what are you going to do for them. But the interview is also for you to understand like what is this company going to do for you. So you need to also be interviewing these guys as well. But like no one's out here to like trick you. That used to be such an old corporate thing. Like if you interviewed at like Microsoft or something, they'd be like, what's the receptionist's name that you met when you walked in here? What was her name? Do you not know her name? Get out. And like we're not about that. So it's a conversation. And like when you spoke about like fun, I got excited because I want to talk about fun. Like you're a game designer, like let's have a disagreement about it. Let's talk about it. So I want to know what you have to think, and your job is to present what you think in accordance with your brand. And I can talk about branding, personal branding forever, in the most digestible manner possible. And that might take you having to write everything down and then just like editing what the core things of what you want to say. And again, I think, I gave Ash a bit of a hard time about AI earlier, but like, it's fine. Like, it's like, hey, AI, I am a nice, talented design artist. Give me 3 adjectives to describe what I can say in an interview or something. Like, I don't know. Again, like I wouldn't copy that and bring it to your interview.
Use it as a tool.
As a research tool, as like a tool to help sort of like get the creative juices flowing. But yeah, if you had asked me 10 years ago to do what you just did, I would have been like absolutely no. So I very good job with those for you, sir. Very good. And I got a clean.
I got it.
You gotta roll.
Yeah, I can take some questions, but I gotta roll in about 15 minutes.
Okay. Let's do some Q&A, guys.
I gotta go now.
Okay, you gotta go.
Thank you. Everybody give Ashley a round of applause.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
I also know that's not for any specific game franchise.
I think it's fine if I ask you, but yeah, just make sure you don't like poo-poo anyone else's.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Dragon Age, that game sucks. Oh, well, this guy worked on it for 10 years, so.
Oddly enough, Dragon Age is one of my favorite series.
Oh man, I'm playing the Inquisition right now. I'm loving it. So. Don't spoil it.
I took the tabletop.
Is it tabletop?
There's a tabletop. It's it came out as a promotional thing for Inquisition. And there's a secondary book for it where it's every character, like every major character from the first 3 games, has character sheets.
I need to look that up.
It's complicated.
See you Monday. Oh, I'll see you tonight. See you at the party. What's up, party? See you at the party.
Okay, you guys, some more quick Q&A.
Ooh.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, good question. Yeah. Photo shoot time. My phone number. Hold on. I promise anything Ash's advice is one from me.
That's amazing. That's the first time I've ever seen just where it's like a
Maybe I'm
like mock interview. It's really important that
Thank
Thank
you.
you for joining.
Great painting.
Playing at practice. So it's so, like that interview, I just use it. If I was getting ready to interview initially, I would study that. Okay, guys, any questions? Any last questions?
They're so corporate at this table. We move down some. What questions you guys got? Kiki.
I know we talked about this a little bit earlier too, but I've kind of like seen it as a producer. When you're dealing with a big team and you've got all these different personalities, how how you kind of mitigate the conflict that might happen between like different personalities.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like the $1 million question. It's like, how do you get a team to work together? Setting expectations is important. Understanding like what the hierarchy is important. Like, if it's a flat hierarchy, that's fine. I don't love those, but I get them. You need to find a common goal. You need to figure out what everyone's wisdom is, the what's in it for me. So why are these people on this team? You need to understand the goals of the assignment. And then you need to figure out how to make people part of the solution. So, and then you really need to understand, like, are there actual toxic issues here that need to be addressed? Do you have people that are making an unsafe work environment? Because you nip that in the bud pretty quick. It's like, if you've got someone coming in, and they're like, hey, sweet cheeks, my work you're doing. What is this madman business? Get out, sir. So like, you don't tolerate that. You don't allow that. And I'm very thankful for Gearbox that we have a very safe environment. We have games like, we have a character called like Princess Butt Stallion or whatever.
I love
But like, our team is very diverse and, you know, we embrace all gender identities, everything. So, you know, great ideas come from different places, so you want to have a diverse team. But like anytime that you have a group of people that are very, very different, not everyone's going to agree on everything. So you have to decide, like, is this the natural part of creation? Or is someone being a toxic jerk who needs to be removed from the equation? But yeah, I think the biggest thing is just creating avenues for communication, like having a weekly stand-up is important. When you do stand-ups, keep them short. Make sure you're standing, if you're in a room, you stand up, because otherwise people will pontificate and you're just like, oh my gosh, shut up, please. Like, Becky, no one cares, we've got to get to like our next meeting, and Becky's just going on about a thing. So I had a designer who was very hesitant for stand-ups. He's like, I don't want to do stand-ups. So I put the stand-ups 15 minutes before lunch. And he was like, oh my gosh, Lou, what are you doing, you maniac? We're never gonna have lunch ever again. I said, no, believe me, Nick, this will work. And I tell you what, those stand-ups are done right on time, every time, because they're right before lunch.
I've been in stand-ups that take an hour.
Now,
I was like, this is not a stand-up anymore.
well, stand-up should be, what are you working on, or what did you work on last week? What are you working on this week? What's blocking you? And if anyone goes beyond that stuff, it's not a stand-up, that's something else.
Yeah.
So you really need to, and you can pull the person, like, don't call them out in the room, but like, you pull them apart, and it's like, hey Bob, like, I noticed in stand-ups you're taking like 15 minutes a pop, and like, we've got like 10 people in the stand-up, we can't all like take 15 minutes, so, you know, this week, why don't I sit down and work with you, like what you're gonna say before stand-up, or something like that. I don't know, work with them, but like
Like an outline for them.
an outline, just, but again, like, what you worked on last week, what are you working on this week, what's blocking you, that's stand-up. But stand-up shouldn't, really, it should be like a minute tops per person, if that even. But yeah, keep them quick.
So, as far as personal branding, what could you say to a person that doesn't know how to explain their skills to people? Like, what can that person do to actually get their skills and like explain their skills to interviewers? Because I have a hard time doing that.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you the answer, but I don't know if you're gonna like it, because everyone I give this answer to, they hate it. I'm a big believer in feedback. Feedback is a gift. So I took all my junior producers at the beginning of this year, and I was like, all right, guys, you got an assignment. I want you to find one peer. I want you to find one senior producer. I want you to find a dev lead that you work with regularly, and then a wild card. And you are going to ask them to put a meeting on the books, and you're going to sit with them for about 30 to 45 minutes, and I want you to go in with a list of questions about what they think about you and your work. Not about you personally, but like your work. And so they would sit down with these people, and they would ask, like, how am I doing? What am I doing that you like? What are some of the skills that I possess that you really enjoy? Are there things that I can work on? And they were really sort of farming out like what other people thought of them, their work, not personally, because again, they'd be like, oh, you are a bit loud. I'm like, I don't give a shit if you're loud. I'm their manager, I'll tell them that they're loud. But it really sort of helps to get like feedback from others if you're having trouble like articulating it yourself. So are you on a team right now?
I wouldn't say like it's a team that I meet in person. I mean he's one of them right behind me. So.
Yeah, you might just want to like have a conversation, like tell them beforehand. Don't just like spring it on them and be like, hey man, you know, Lou mentioned like getting feedback is important. Like, can you talk about like how we worked on the last project together? Do you have any feedback for me? Like, what did you think? Now, he might come back to you and be like, my God, you were an absolute diva nightmare. Now, your job is to take that feedback, try not to punch him in the face, but then you take that feedback and you have to understand like what gives rise to that feedback. And you can be like, okay, you said that, and like feedback is never wrapped in like a beautiful bow. Like sometimes it's a pile of dog poop left on your front doorstep set on fire, but it's feedback, right? And you have to figure out like why are you getting that feedback, and is it like appropriate to do anything with that feedback? Because I once had a dev give me feedback and he's like, you ask too many questions. And I'm like, okay. My gut instinct initially would be like, okay, I can't ask any more questions, but I'm a producer, like that's my job to be curious and ask questions. So I kind of spoke to him about it. It's like, okay, am I asking questions at like inappropriate times? Am I asking questions that are not apropos about what we're talking about? Like, what's the deal? And I found out what gave rise to it. And it turns out that he didn't like it when I was asking him questions when he sort of reached like a workflow state. So like, he doesn't have any meetings, he's been working on an animation for like an hour, and then I come along and I'm like, hey Kent, like here's 1,000 questions. So what I did was like, okay, cool, if I make a meeting with you in the morning, or if I send you questions to your Teams chat and you just agree not to look at them until you're at a flow state, like is that cool? Instead of just going up to him at his desk. And he's like, yeah, so I could have taken that as like, hey, you talk too much and you ask too many questions, instead of like, hey, maybe asking the questions at the right time. So to answer your question about how do you figure out what your personal brand is, you gotta maybe get like a survey of people, and like you could ask your siblings or your people you volunteer with, or your mom or your friends or whoever, it doesn't have to be your work colleagues, and be like, what is about me that you appreciate? And they'll be like, hey, you're very thoughtful. And you can take something with that. And they're like, hey, you're very curious, or like, you're very creative. And so they can sort of, and you can kind of see how you feel about that and be like, okay, like maybe creativity is part of my brand. But, you know, it's like, when I lived in South Africa or when I was living in England, I think when I was living in England, people were like, oh, the English, like, you're so English. And I'm like, what does that mean? And it wasn't until I moved to America where I realized, like, oh, like, I say jolly good a lot, and I talk with an accent, and I get grumpy when it's rainy, and I love the sun, or whatever. But like, you don't know what's different or unique about you until you like get more information from like other places or other resources. So like get more information and like talk to people. And I know it's uncomfortable, and the reason why I made my team do it, because I knew they would complain about it. They're like, Lou, we don't want to do this. We're scared. And I'm like, you're scared? You do it scared. I don't care, but you're doing it. I don't care if you're scared, you're going to do it anyway. So that would be my advice. Do with it what you will. And I got like 3 more minutes. Yeah.
Back to earlier about portfolios. If I wanted to apply as a junior producer, how would I go about with that? Like obviously the resume, but like what else would I do?
I don't have a portfolio. Never made one. I mean, I made one when I was a level designer. But for production, you don't need a portfolio.
So, just list my experience?
I have a resume. Yeah. I don't know what I would look at a production portfolio. I'd be like, okay, here's some people's art, I guess, that you produced. Again, like that's just my personal take. I've never received a portfolio for a producer, and I've interviewed a lot of producers that I'm like, that really made the hire for me. Now I have gotten portfolios where they're like, I really want to be a level designer, but I'm applying as a producer because I just want to get my foot in the door. And I was like, I don't want that, because I want you to work for me for a while. I want you're an investment. I need to get my return on my investment, not just hire someone who's going to yeet to like level design the moment level design opens a role, you know. So
That's something interesting that you just mentioned, and it brought me something up that you said during your interview that I wish you would have said. You said this one thing. You said one of your questions was, where do you see me in a year? Remember that question?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about if he would have said, where would you see me in 5 years? Because I would think that then you would think that he wants to stay with us for 5 years. He's trying to communicate that to you.
I think I would rephrase the question, because I think where you see me in 5 years is like, I don't know, man, like, that's hard, because I used to ask that question a long time ago, and then the pandemic hit, and I'm like, man, everyone I interviewed 5 years before the pandemic were all wrong. They never said locked inside all day, but that's neither here nor there. So I think where do you see me in 5 years is like a really hard question for a recruiter who doesn't really know you. I would say like, if I were to do well in this role, what type of growth paths do you see for me in 5 years? Because that way you're sort of talking about like I'm invested in this path that you're presenting, we're talking about. How do I grow in that path, as opposed to being like, you're kind of putting the onus on me to figure out where you should be in 5 years, as opposed to like, there's a process here that you guys do. Typically, what does it look like for someone to be here for 5 years? If they were thriving. So I think just rephrasing that question, because I'd be like, I don't know, you in 5 years, it depends on me, my dude.
Would it be okay to say where would you see me in like a couple years?
I would say like, if I were to join your company and I were to throw my phone around, no, I'm joking, just kidding. If I were to join your company and if I were to be thriving and doing well, what is typically the path for someone 1 year, 2 years from now? And I think that's good to ask because you're not just making me like give you like a career plan without even knowing you. It's like, okay, like typically a designer or a producer, like if you were to ask me that question in that way, I'd be like, okay, you've been in my production team for 2 years. If at that point you were doing well, I would start giving you some other like special projects to do. So you wouldn't just be like still in one feature, you'd be taking on other features. I would have you taking on more responsibility of the current department that you have. I might even start putting you on pre-pro in another project. So like I can answer that question if you give me just a little bit of like direction, but if you're just like, where do you see me in 4 years? Like in production or like in general, like just give me a little bit, you know?
Or even better, just asking like, what does growth look like?
Yes, that's perfect. You want to be hired manager? Yeah, good job. You got to the crux of it way quicker than I did, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
guys,
Yeah.
let's call it so she can go. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Let's give her a